You know how it is. You find something interesting online, something really out there, and you think, okay, what is this about? But then digging in feels like a massive task.
Right, you're suddenly faced with this huge pile of information trying to figure out what's actually important.
Exactly. And that's why we do the deep dive. We take those fascinating, maybe confusing things you send us, could be articles, studies, sometimes even like today, a YouTube transcript, and we try to boil it down.
We sift through it, pull out the main points, those moments that make you go, aha.
Think of it as your shortcut through the noise. And today's dive, well, it's definitely leaning into the, let's say, unconventional side of things. A listener sent over a transcript from a YouTube session.
Yeah, it involves people called hypnoperators. There's a sponsor mentioned. And the main subject is someone named Álvaro, who's described as having telepathic abilities.
And the whole session seems focused on, well, perceptions and maybe even predictions about Pope Francis and the Catholic Church.
So our goal here is to walk through this pretty unique source material. We'll look at the key claims being made, any predictions, and just the general esoteric information that comes up about the Pope's passing, the next Pope, all that stuff.
All right, let's get into it. The transcript starts with these protocol questions for Álvaro. First one, connect with Pope Francis's DNA in the here and now, specifically dated April 25th, 2025. What jumped out at you from his response?
Well, almost straight away, he says he feels fear and senses entities around him, and he notes that's not typical for him.
Okay, interesting start.
Then he starts describing different kinds of DNA. He talks about patterns like computer code and then what he calls static biological DNA. But then there's this essence DNA that he says made him feel nauseous.
Nauseous.
Yeah.
Wow. And didn't he describe another, even stranger one?
Oh, yeah. He described a DNA structure he felt was like extraterrestrial. Purple and dark violet spheres, black bodies inside them, yellow dots on spikes. Very specific, very unusual imagery.
Definitely not your standard biology class description.
Not at all. And he felt physical things too, pressure on his chest and this feeling of guilt tied to his own views about the church.
Guilt. How did that connect?
It was linked, apparently, to a worm-like energy in his solar plexus, which they then reportedly removed during the session.
Okay, so physical sensations, emotions, these really vivid, unique DNA visuals. It's quite a mix.
It really is. It makes you think about how people might perceive and translate complex ideas through their own, unique frameworks.
True. Then the session shifts again, doesn't it? He starts talking about skulls.
That's right. Subterranean layers of skulls. He describes them as ancestral, different colors representing like a hierarchy in the church structure.
And these skulls are doing what, exactly?
According to his perception, they're transferring energy to the living pope, sort of like a power source.
And some of these skulls, the transcript says, came from sacrifices in the name of the church. That's right.
It's a very strong claim, yes. And he also mentions jailer entities trying to stop him from revealing this stuff. It paints this picture of, well, a hidden, controlled energy system.
And he makes this distinction, right, between Francisco Noapa and Francisco Papa.
Exactly. Francisco Noapa is described as like the basic worn-out DNA, common, while Francisco Papa is connected to the energy of those skulls.
And the idea is that one needs the other.
Yeah, that the Noapa part, the sort of everyday essence, is depleted and needs the energy from the Papa part, the one linked to the skulls, to function. Like the public persona draws power from this deeper source.
Okay, let's move to the second question.
Yeah.
Still April 25th, 2025. Where is Pope Francis in the here and now?
And Álvaro continues that split view. He sees Francisco Noapa, the depleted part, inside this white room. No windows, no doors, just a bright white inescapable box.
Trapped, essentially.
Seems like it. And at the same time, Francisco Papa is seen as part of that skull energy, part of the whole church organization. Also trapped, but within that larger energetic structure.
So one part isolated, the other entangled in the institution's energy. A pretty bleak picture.
It really is.
Confining.
Question 3 moves to a date. Monday, April 21st, 2025, as the proposed date of the Pope's death. What was Álvaro's take on that specific date?
He doesn't just confirm the 21st, it's more complex. He mentions perceiving April 23rd as maybe the actual date of passing, but he also brings up earlier dates like the 13th and 19th. It suggests a process, not a single event.
A process involved, well, this is where it gets even stranger, isn't it? The cryogenics idea.
Exactly. The transcript introduces this claim that the Pope's body was put into cryogenia or some kind of suspended animation around April 13th, the goal being preservation.
And they tried this before.
Apparently, yeah. Álvaro perceives initial tests back in May 2024 that failed, but later attempts were successful.
So the timeline he sees is body functioning between the 13th and 19th of April 2025, some kind of failure on the 19th, maybe revived, then the true passing on the 23rd after they liberated and thawed the body. That's the sequence described. It implies a very deliberate technological intervention around his death.
Which leads into question 4. The hidden meaning of passing on a day linked to the resurrection announcement.
Right. And here, Álvaro's perceptions get very symbolic. He sees a hidden certificate, a stone man's face. He links it to the number 3, the third day, echoing the resurrection story.
So the intended message was
that he had resurrected. That was the hidden message they wanted to convey, according to Álvaro.
This sounds like there's a but.
There is. He says there was too much noise, too much interference, or information overload. So the plan, as he saw it, to portray him as dead and then resurrected, didn't actually work because the body had been interfered with for too long.
So a planned symbolic event that supposedly failed. Wow. Okay, question 5 touches on that famous prophecy about the last pope, Peter the Roman, the fall of Rome, all that.
And Álvaro's response here is more about feelings and imagery. He reports fear again, sees blue colors, more gloves, cleaning supplies.
Cleaning supplies.
Yeah. He interprets it as a metaphor, a mechanism the church uses to clean or hide things it finds inappropriate, things determined by the church itself.
And what's inappropriate in this view?
He says its church structure is built on arbitrariness, not freedom, things they need to conceal. So it's like an internal sanitizing process he's perceiving.
Moving to question 6, the Latin text at the end of Malachi's prophecy. Predicting destruction, final judgment. What did Álvaro see there?
Less about hidden meanings, more about manipulation. He explicitly says much manipulation. He sees these warrior knights guarding the belief in the prophecy.
Guarding the beliefs.
Yeah, like custodians of the energy built up around this idea, tied into history, the Crusades, the church's narrative about its positive role. So not a secret code, but a heavily defended belief system.
Question 7 shifts gears. The geopolitical situation after Pope Francis.
Here, Álvaro perceives the church structure shrinking, condensing, especially in Europe, specifically Rome. He sees people contributing to this, an internal closing in, but external energy still flows to the center.
And what happens to that energy?
It gets stored in Rome. He describes it as a golden, liquid-like energy, like the church is contracting physically but hoarding energetically.
Intriguing image.
Okay.
Question 8. Esoteric info about the next conclave. This sounds like it could be interesting.
It's quite specific. He sees the bishops gathered, standard stuff, but then this man appears, dressed in white but described like an American tie, short sleeves. He brings a book-like structure.
And the significance of this man.
Álvaro's perception is that this means the decision is already made. This man brings the predetermined outcome, bypassing the whole ceremony.
Wow. The fix is in, basically.
That's the implication. He says the decision is settled, and the book itself. He perceives it as having this white calcium-like energy, like ashes from incinerated people.
That is a disturbing image. Really disturbing.
Very.
And the final protocol question. Who is the next pope?
His perception isn't of a specific person. It's more of a type. A very intense man, but also mocking. Someone who just follows orders, takes no initiative, a figurehead representing all possible candidates.
A puppet, almost.
That's the feeling. And then that image of the short-sleeved man with the tie, the one with the described Jewish-style side curls, comes back, like a repeating scene in a film, emphasizing his role in delivering this pre-decided outcome.
Okay, so that wraps up the formal questions. Then they moved into a more free-form exploration. What came out of that?
He basically doubled down on the idea of manipulation, that the whole situation around the Pope's passing and the conclave is an effort to hide things, to make an unnatural process look normal. He confirms again, the short-sleeved man brings the decision.
And they get a name for him in this part, right?
Yes. Perceived via DNA, the surname Hernandez. And interestingly, Álvaro perceives this Hernandez figure isn't Catholic, but connected to some other religion or tradition. He just brings the suitcase with the info, delivers it, leaves. Repeatedly.
A courier for a pre-planned outcome, orchestrated by outside forces.
That's strongly implied. And the information he carries isn't just about the Catholic Church. It represents the structure of many churches, with links to other groups, specifically mentioning Freemasonry.
And the skull energy comes back, too.
It does. Described now with a rotten smell. Dense, old, exhausted energy, reinforcing that idea of drawing power from a compromised source.
What about the suitcase contents? That sounded particularly strange in the outline.
It really is. Álvaro describes seeing bones, sample tubes, blood, tissue, fluids, the components of a being, including a human-like femur.
And this is intended for?
Implantation into the chosen pope during the conclave. That's the perception.
Where does this material come from?
Trace back to the energy of those ancestral skulls, the source that supposedly built the Pope energy construct. And part of Pope Francis's energy, that calcified white part, is apparently in the suitcase, too.
Good grief. And Francis's essence. Where is that in all this?
Still split, in Álvaro's view. Part remains in that white cube, part is with the decomposing body. He even suggests embalming might strengthen the tie between the essence and the body.
And the failed resurrection plan gets revisited.
Yes. The reasoning given is the body was too degraded, and some purer part of Francis's essence resisted, causing interference. A missed chance for the church to showcase resurrection.
Which explains the timing of the death announcement, tying it to resurrection themes.
Right, and the original plan, he says, was even more ambitious. Keep him going until December 25th.
Christmas Day. Why?
For the symbolism, giving life for the new birth of Jesus. It shows how deeply, in this alleged plan, the manipulation was tied to core religious dates and ideas.
What about the conclave itself? The people involved?
Álvaro perceives the participants taking on energies, even names of past figures, making the whole atmosphere very dense. Some can't handle it, but the real decision, made by just 14 key people. Others are present, but essentially blocked.
14. That's specific. Any significance to numbers like 33?
Yes. 33 comes up again, linked to the Pope's reign length and numerology. Álvaro connects it to lodges, Masonic ones, as a number programmed for power, though he stresses the energy sources, well, dense and problematic.
He also saw Christmas trees and nuns with cadaver faces?
Yeah. The trees and celebrations are part of the image they want to project, adjusting the team. The nuns with veiled, cadaverous faces, they represent those ancestral skulls, the foundation of the church structure, being physically present in a way.
And the man with the suitcase, Hernandez. Who's behind him?
No single leader. A generalized energy is the perception. Even connections beyond Earth are mentioned. The decision comes from the collective energy of the dead ancestors and those 14 living individuals. They see it as a good decision for them.
How was the suitcase information implanted?
Energetically, likely through what Álvaro calls a non-conscious abduction. It involves replacing cells, even the femur, to maintain tradition, even as other religions diverge.
So the new pope is basically programmed.
Following a script. Deviate, and you're removed. And the resurrection theme, they'll push that hard again with this new pope.
He mentioned Pope John Paul I too, the 33-day pope.
Yes. Perceiving his short reign was linked to him trying to reveal too much and his body not being suitable for their resurrection aims.
And his final thoughts on the current era.
Described it using desert imagery. Cold, scarcity air, water, sun. Relating it to religion, lodges, beliefs. But despite all this, he doesn't think this will be the last pope. He expects them to keep experimenting.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Then the sponsor, Saul, asked some specific questions. First, the Vatican audience hall looking like a serpent's head.
Álvaro confirmed that perception, said it's intentional to frighten, show power. He even likened the 14 decision-makers in the conclave to vampire teeth. Entering the space supposedly contaminates you with that dense energy.
And the Pope's mitre? Shaped like a fish.
He interpreted that as representing ancient, non-human, amphibious beings. Pre-human, part of that peak of skulls, with relics of them supposedly within the church. The idea is the church absorbed ancient beliefs and made them denser, its own.
What about Pope Francis's simple wooden coffin, compared to the grandeur of past papal burials?
Álvaro saw that as pure manipulation, a strategic move by the church to look austere, simple for modern times, contrasting with past wealth.
Not Francis's choice.
No. He perceived Francis's essence as one of service, but trapped within this manipulated system that plays high-stakes games with politics, business, finance. The simple coffin was part of that game, to seem closer to the people.
So I also asked about mafia connections.
Álvaro didn't see a direct link to Francis himself, but to the institution of the church. Receiving resources, money, and deliberately looking the other way about where it came from, including mafia, drug trafficking.
So the Pope was operating within the system he couldn't change.
Pretty much. A predetermined system with its own structures, its own sponsors. Almost impossible for one person, even the Pope, to dismantle in that view.
Okay, last question from Saul. The atmosphere around this conclave versus previous ones, public interest, prayer, that sort of thing.
A huge difference, according to Álvaro. Previous ones had more genuine fraternal energy within the church. A slower pace this time. Fast, flat, emotionless. Very planned, artificial.
And public engagement.
Still there, people are watching, but it's more observational, like judging. Much less real devotion. He estimated maybe 15% now compared to 55–60% before. No deep emotional connection, just flat, cold, rigid, a major shift.
A significant change in feeling. Well, you have certainly journeyed with us through a complex and definitely thought-provoking set of information today.
It's safe to say this transcript offers a perspective that really diverges from the mainstream understanding of the papacy, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And our aim, as always, was to give you a concentrated look at what this particular source contained, respecting your time while hopefully hitting some of those aha moments you were looking for.
So maybe something to ponder is, what do these kinds of narratives, however unusual, suggest about power structures, about hidden agendas, maybe even about how different people construct their reality and belief systems?
Definitely gives you something to think about. Until our next deep dive, keep questioning, keep exploring.